political deal. I always suspected it was because he had spoken out openly on the subject.
Okay.
Now, there were people who say, no, Wendell just made a dumb mistake, and he broke the law, and off he went. He spent, 3 years in prison. Well, there's an example for you, where people say, well, he screwed up. Well, I never did believe the man screwed up that way. I think that partly him going to jail was a result of him being very outspoken.
Okay.
Now, that's a threat that you face. In 91, I was up to here. My first marriage was on the rocks for a variety of reasons. I was in a new job. I took a job with the Sheriff's Department. I was actually working for FEMA as an emergency management director. But I was just so frustrated and so aggravated of waiting for the government to tell the people a little something. And then I was so frustrated and angered by the fact that not only were they not telling them the truth, they were telling them blatant lies. And they were also destroying people's lives. There were people who had contacts, who the government would place in what they called, the police put you in protective
custody?
Well, not just custody. They
A
create
safe
a whole
house?
new life for you.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I had seen examples of military families' lives destroyed because someone...
the person spoke out?
A pilot would come back from a mission, and before they got to him, he said something to somebody. My God, you should have seen what I saw up there. There was this damn ship flying along beside me, and there were faces at the windows looking at me. And this went public. And this poor son of a bitch, they took him and sent him to Kwajalein, I believe. Some tiny little atoll in the middle of the Pacific where you can't take your family. And he went off to Kwajalein for God knows how long, away from his family, because he said one thing. I learned all these things. It struck me that this was not fair, this was not right, that no government, damn it, has the right to do that to people, and I came out of the closet in a big way.
Right.
Not only did I share everything I learned at SHAPE in the study, the assessment, which in itself is dynamite, but the real dynamite is all the stuff I've learned since. And I learned even after I retired from the Army in 76, I still had a clearance. I worked for FEMA. I got the equivalent of a master's degree in emergency management at the Institute in Emmitsburg, Maryland.
Okay, but they didn't come get you and send you off to Siberia.
No, they didn't,
Iceland.
because once I opened my big yap, I had people come to tell me that, Bob, that's your only defense. That's the only security you got. Keep talking. Because if they come and shut you up now, it'll be so obvious to the world that you've been closed down that much of what you've been talking about must be true. As I told you, I think I shared with Bill, I was intimidated. I had phone calls on people who wouldn't identify themselves, male voices saying, don't you think you've talked about this just about enough? Why don't the hell time for you to shut up? Who's this? Never mind. Keep your damn mouth shut on this. Click. I had a number of those. I had a little house in Tucson in a cul-de-sac. I lived there. I bought it years ago. Bought it in 60-something. I'm sitting there one day reading or whatever, and I hear a very distinctive sound. I knew a helicopter. I know the sound of a Huey because I'd been in Vietnam.
Okay.
And the Huey has a distinctive sound all of its own. And I thought, is it passing over? And it kept, and the damn thing was sitting over my house. So I go out the door into the driveway and I look up and there's this totally black Huey-type helicopter not more than 100 feet above my house, violating FAA rules, totally violating the rules, but the damn thing was sitting up there, and there was not a marking on it, not one mark on it. It was totally black, and that was a violation of FAA, Now, these guys violate the law all the time. Mm-hmm. And I stood out there, and I thought, who the hell are you? And I looked up and studied it, and there was this big, circular, glassy apparatus on the bottom of this thing. It was part of the aircraft. And I concluded later that it was probably one of those 360-degree windows. Mm-hmm. And there were probably guys sitting in there looking at me down through this glass. But it was black, totally black. The glass was black. The thing was sitting up there and just kind of like, that. Uh-huh. What are you going to do about it? And I shook my fist, pointed my finger, mouthed a couple of profanities, called him a number of names. I know you son of a bitch. I know who you are, and I know what you're doing.
Okay.
And about the time I really am giving them hell, I'm sure they thought, all right, we've got his attention. Off it went. First of all, totally black, no markings violation. Hovering over a private residence violation. Sure. They don't care. It was an intimidation. And this was right after I had went public. Okay. At this big conference in Tucson.
So